Don't tell me that you want me. Don't tell me what you need. I'll show you how to love me, but I know how to bleed. I know how to bleed.
Welcome everyone to In the Spotlight. Joining me this week is an incredibly talented singer-songwriter who likes to do things his way. And if you really want to see him accomplish something, simply tell him it can't be done. Please welcome to the show, Chris Bullinger. Chris, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that intro too. You kind of it captured me. I think we can end it right now. That kind of covered all the bases. So
Well, Chris, I'll tell you, one of the things I always try to do is when doing an introduction, I really want to, make it as personalized and customized as I can to my guests. And I really believe those are just some things that jumped out at me, about you and the way you do things. And I especially love the fact that I did read where, that comment about if you want to see something done, tell them it can't be done, so because I kind of live by the same rules. So I really respect that.
that's right. I guess I've always had a little trouble with authority and especially direct authority. So nothing motivates me more.
I totally understand and I respect that a lot, Chris. Now, I'd like to just turn the clock back a bit to ask you about this. You had this successful career going in the renewable energy business, and then you decide to pursue a career in music. So, what inspired you to make that move when you did?
Well, it kind of went the other direction if we go even further back. So I've
Oh, okay.
been, yeah, I've been really into more poetry than music, I guess, for most of my life. And then at some point, put a tune to it and got into the music, put a couple albums out over a decade ago, and then had started up this renewable energy business, which I'm still in, by the way, and looking to put more energy into the music business at this point. And in the past 2 3 years, I really got back into it, and so it's kind of come full circle for me, actually.
You said that you still have the renewable energy business going. So how do you manage to balance everything?
It's a challenge. The one thing that's been most challenging is really haven't been able to get out and tour. And that's something we're still trying to figure out how to manage at this point. As far
Okay.
as putting the albums, so that's something I can do. I can write the songs at 2 a.m., pick up my guitar, and the song will come out. And then getting in the studio, I've been with the same crew now for 3 going on 4 albums. So we're pretty tight and efficient in the studio at this point also.
If we take a look at more currently, your most recent single, Salvation as I Know It,
Mhm.
my understanding is that there's a story in there, something about a chance meeting at a bar and a war theme and just a whole lot going on there. So what's the story behind that song?
So that particular song, which is I guess it's out now. We've released it. Um, was written by a chance meeting in a bar. I guess many meetings are in a bar and most are by chance. So maybe that's not that unique, but that's how it happened. And I was overseas and had come back, and it's just that moment it touched me, which is how most of my songs are based on a kernel of truth. But I've got an imagination, I can expand around that. So uh, there's something that kicks a song off somewhere in my brain, or it could be in my heart, I suppose, and then really gets it going. So wrote that song about this chance meeting overseas, and then a war theme came to it, and I guess there's been famous quotes about love and war forever. So I'm not the first to ever do that either. But that's just how the song kind of came out. But it's really sort of a love song in many ways, although it's set in a situation where two people have met and one was left behind in a war zone, essentially. But then several years later, that bar actually did get blown up in an act of terrorism.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and so and those are the times I guess people say there's no such thing as coincidence, and And time in some respects is an artifice. Maybe it's not perfectly linear, but it's just kind of struck me as really odd thing to have happened, or maybe a coincidental thing, or maybe
Yeah.
the only thing to happen at that point.
No, absolutely, but it really is, it's a powerful song, and that's one of the things I wanna come back to in just a couple of minutes in terms of the lyrics and a couple of comments that I wanted to make there. But before I do, I just want to go back to your songwriting. So what does that process look like for you? You talked about taking a kernel of truth and you have an imagination, but what does that overall process look like for you?
I mean, to me, the process is in three steps: is observation, empathy, and rhythm. And I think that's true for most art. And rhythm doesn't have to be, a rhythm can be in a painting, right? I'm not talking about a musical beat. Observation, I think, is very important in that uh, if something's just so personal and it's not observed, it might not relate to anyone else, right? So I think the observation is important. Empathy shows some sort of relationship or ability to connect, I think, with not everyone, not particularly the person you might have wrote it for if you write that way, but with someone, human empathy. And then the rhythm is the kind of the means to connect, whether it's the brushstroke or the guitar, the drum beat, whatever the case may be. So to me, it's really three steps, and that's really how my songs evolve. And I do not write from the hook, which is the way a lot of folks write, which is coming up with the clever lyric or rhythm or beat that is going to be the heart of the song, and then try to figure out where to go from there. I almost always write from the top to the bottom.
Well, and I think you actually just answered one of the other questions I was going to ask you, Chris, and that was, because your lyrics to me are so relatable and authentic, and I think it's because of all the things that you just said.
Yeah, I think I've also, I've got a notion that if something's too personal or too universal, it's not really in my wheelhouse. And I'm not saying you can't make a good piece of artwork out of something that's entirely personal or something that's entirely universal, but my wheelhouse is really more about something I can relate to that might connect with others. And that's what I strive for, or what comes through me, I guess. And so mine really has both those elements to it.
Yeah, and you just mentioned about the connection, and that's something that I wanted to touch on now with regard to your album that I understand is going to be coming out sometime in the spring here in 2025. So waiting to be seen part two. And there is a connection, you just mentioned that word connection, and kind of a continuation as well as a connection with this album. So can you talk about that with us?
Sure. So this album is a double album, and it's a concept album. I know that singles is where it's at and been for decades at this point, but I guess I'm a little old school, or I don't like being told what to do. So I figured a 23 song concept album would make a lot of sense. Um, and it didn't start out that way. I was just pulling the album together and really had a lot more material than one album. And as I started to put the songs in order I thought made sense, uh, it really started to have an arc to it and tell a story, like a collection of vignettes or short stories. And so there were a few gaps, and I didn't write intentionally to fill those in, but as I kept writing, if I wrote a song that fit in, I would just plug it in there. And then we got into this, before we got in the studio, I talked to a couple of my buddies who produced for me, and I said, this is what I'm thinking. And they said, that's crazy, let's do it. So that's where we ended up. And it really tells a full arc, and it could be read as a story, in chapters. In fact, that's the way I think about it. It's got an introduction, some chapters, and then a conclusion at the end. So that's really the way it works. But you can listen to any one song and enjoy it, I suppose. But I'm I think if one takes the time to listen to it straight through, it's pretty interesting.
No, I love the concept. Now, is there a projected release date yet for the album?
Yeah, so the second half is coming out in March.
Okay.
First half's already out, so the sides A and B are out, sides C and D are coming out in March. The first single, as we were talking about, is out now, and then we'll have another single probably coming out in February, and then the full the second half of the album be out in March.
Wow, definitely a lot to look forward to then there with the album. Now, anything else your fans can look forward to in 2025 besides the album we just talked about?
Well, we've just, like I said, I've been working with the same crew here for a handful of albums now. We're getting pretty good at what we do. I mean, I think we were all pretty good at what we individually do, but the collaboration, whether it's a video or playing live or playing in studio, the collaboration can just bring a whole new aspect and angle to it. And now that we've done a few albums together, we're getting halfway decent at being a team. And so we went down to New Orleans. Actually, we've cut the other ones up in Nashville, but went down to New Orleans, cut a new album. It's got horns on about half of the songs. That was the impetus actually to kind of get some of the feel, get some New Orleans horns on about half the songs. And that one is probably gonna be final mix and master in Q1 of 2025. So it might yet come out in 2025 also. So we might put out the second half of Waiting to Be Seen as well as a brand new album in 2025.
Wow. All right. Well, definitely lots of great music to look forward to, Chris. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, for anyone who is watching who maybe isn't familiar with you or your music, what's something that you'd want them to know about you?
Hmm. I mean, about me personally, you can probably find it in the music. Just give it a listen. I am someone who is a champion of the underdog. I believe in humanity. I think we all struggle in various ways through life. I think we all endeavor to connect. And, I can feel very connected sitting alone in a dive bar right by myself with just people around me. I don't even have to talk to anyone. I think it's possible. I think it's achievable. And you may be lonely, but you're not alone, and that's really something that I think the music conveys, and that's how I get through life.
Yeah, well, and I think that's definitely a powerful message, and I can absolutely see what you're saying in terms of just listen to your music and people will get to know you because it goes back to what I was saying earlier about just being so relatable, authentic, and being you. And I can't think of a better way for people to do that. So I hope everyone's watching will do that and take advantage of that opportunity to get to know you in that way. And another way that I think can help people get to know you is if I asked you this, Chris, and that is, what do you love most about what you do?
I love the possibility that the music may connect with someone. And actually, the first song I'm Waiting to Be Seen is about connection. It's about the possibility or the pursuit of one complete connection. I don't know if that's achievable, but it's certainly worthy of pursuit. And that's something that I strive for. I think people should strive for. I think it brings people closer together. You can hear it in a lot of my music. It really is about just trying to connect with other people. And part of my job is just to get the hell out of the way, actually. Just let the songs do what they can. Like we've talked about, my background with music has taken sort of a circular path. And what I've come around to is that these songs come to me or through me for a reason, and they're probably meant to be out there, maybe reach one person or 1,000 or 1 million, whatever the case may be. But part of my job is to help with that and not interfere with it in some respects. So that's the way I approach it, and that's where I'm at now with it.
No, I definitely appreciate that, Chris. So I have one last question for you, and that is, if you were to look ahead, looking at where you're at now, looking ahead, what would success ultimately look like for you?
Yeah, I've talked to people about this before. This is not an easy answer, and to me, again, success would be, and actually, I spoke with someone who teaches yoga, and she explained to me that when she does a class, if she feels that one person took something out of that class, that was a successful class. And the background of that is in the musical world, there's, superstars and world tours and music videos and the folks who paved the way and on and on and on. And that was sort of the context of the conversation. But I really took a lot away from that if one person connects with one song, that's success.
Amen to that. I agree, Chris, and I can't think of a better definition. So again, I appreciate your honesty and candor in answering those questions. And I also just want to again commend you on just how authentic and genuine you are. And it comes through not just in your music, but in the conversation we just had. And I, for one, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, and thanks for having me. And I appreciate the positivity you're putting out there to the world, because it's easy to go to the lowest common denominator these days, and what you're doing is really to be commended.
Well, thank you for that too. And that's why we started this. It was, there is enough negativity out there, and it's getting the positive and the inspirational content out there, the wonderful stories like your story and the beautiful music that you're putting out there. So whether it's one person, 100 or 1,000, you're making a difference. We're trying in our small way to make a difference, and maybe together between this show and your music, we can do some good and continue doing some good in the new year here in 2025. Sound like a good idea?
That sounds great. I appreciate it, and let's do it again.
Hey, I look forward to it, Chris, and I wish you all the best in this new year. And I look forward to all the great new music and then some. And folks, I thank you for watching. Couldn't do it without you. We'll see you next time.
Lost a friend or two. I watch you paying dues for the home we've been through. If you could see somehow the way I feel right now, you'd accept my love as true. I guess I never knew what loneliness can do. Now I speak the words, but it seems absurd to repeat these things to you. I be wishing I was in your place. We be kissing, baby, face to face. You shoot me like a rocket